Let's talk about the King of Prussia Inn. The King of Prussia Inn is one of the most iconic places in Upper Merion. It is the place from which King of Prussia gets its name. The inn itself used to stand at the crossroads of Gulf Road and what is now 202. At the time, well, it was gone by many different names, Sweetsford Road, State Road. It belonged to Thomas Rees. The Rees brothers were early European settlers in the area of Welsh descent. The house itself, you can tell the original part of the house, once again, is between the two chimneys. If you were looking at a picture of the house, you'll see towards the left-hand side, there's two chimneys. And between those two, that's the original part of the house. The house stood for many years, and it was eventually acquired by other people who turned it into an inn and a tavern. And from the middle 1700s on, that's what it was for a very long time. It was an inn and a tavern when George Washington and his troops marched past it to get to Valley Forge, the Valley Forge encampment. There are many stories that attach themselves to the house that we haven't always been able to verify. One story is that it was a hotbed of spy activity because it was between the American and the British lines. And of course, any American officers who would like to have a drink would probably travel down there. It's thought that probably spies were hanging out trying to get as much information as they could. There's also a story that the Marquis de Lafayette was inducted into the Masons at the King of Prussia Inn. The Marquis was a young officer and had just joined the army that year, the Continental Army, and became, well, was something of a celebrity among the officers of the Continental Army. In any case, the tavern stood there for, as I said, many, many years. Sadly, when the turnpike was built in 1950 through the town and then the Schuylkill Expressway connected to it, the amount of traffic in the township really was increasing, and many of the old roads needed to be widened, and among them what we now call 202, at the time State Road or Sweetsford Road. But the problem is the inn was right on the road, which means that if you're going to widen the road, the inn has to come down. So PennDOT's original plan was to knock the building down. Now these days, PennDOT is much more careful with archaeological and historic sites. They're required by law to do digs and to very carefully document and make sure that they're not destroying anything historic. But in those days, that was not the case. So the inn was going to be knocked down. King of Prussia, the town, actually got together and formed the Committee to Save the Inn. They fought to save it. The Committee to Save the Inn, by the way, was the seed that eventually became the King of Prussia Historical Society. So they fought to save it, and they won. PennDOT did not knock it down. However, it was not the best of victories, because essentially what they did is they put one lane of the widened road on one side, of 202 on one side, and put the other lanes on the other side, essentially stranding it in the medial strip. It immediately then closed as a tavern, which was very sad. Up until that time, many people were still going there. It began to dilapidate. So for decades, it stood there and just was not in good shape. There were attempts by the Historical Society to go and do cleanups and to try to save as much as they could over the years, but it was really fighting a losing battle. When you're not using a place like that, it starts to fall into ruin. Late 1990s, again, PennDOT needed to widen the roads. They were going to put in turning lanes to go to the mall, and the turning lanes were going to be exactly where the old inn actually still stood. So once again, there was a move to preserve it, and with help from the state of Pennsylvania and PennDOT and PICO and the residents of Upper Merion, who all contributed in what was at the time a historic move, they actually dug up the inn and transported it several hundred yards down to where it currently is on Bill Smith Boulevard, just off of Gulf Road, south of the intersection where it once stood. It was really historic, and no one had tried to move a building that big before, but they did it. So the inn is currently sitting on Bill Smith Boulevard. It is the headquarters of the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce at the moment. And as I said before, it's one of the most historic buildings we have in the township.